This is it. Okay, so recently I got to 100,000 subscribers, which is just... Why? My stuff is so bad. Absolutely insane, and of course you all reacted pretty well. The support has been so great, and I can't thank you enough. So I decided to finally do the vlog in life video I've been talking about for like months now. For those of you that don't know, I live in Canada. Love this nation more than anything. I'm a Canadian for sure, I've lived here my whole life. But last summer, I went to where I was really born, Pakistan, for a month for family reasons. And needless to say, it was really weird. Here I was, an ex-Muslim critical of Sharia, stepping into an Islamic state where rebuking Muhammad gets you the death penalty, where there's no rights for LGBT folk at all, no free speech or freedom of religion, atheism can get you killed, and one of the most dangerous countries in the world with massive amounts of crime, rape, murder, terrorism, and corruption comparable to Syria. So I really wasn't that excited to go. I think I'll always have some kind of sentiment towards Pakistan only because I was born on its soil, but that's where it completely ends. Something that just never left my mind there was that I was walking around in a land that would kill me if I said what I wanted to say, that had honor killings on a daily, even just walking down the streets of Pakistan knowing that I was living in such a dangerous and backwards nation. As a lot of you know, I'm pretty outspoken. I mean, that's why this channel exists in the first place. So I had a lot of problems keeping my mouth shut in Pakistan. Basically, the state has laws that grant death and life in prison to people who diss Islam, Sharia, or Muhammad, and basically free speech isn't really a thing. So when I decided to speak up and defend Trump, I mean, you can kind of guess it didn't end that well for me.
Come on, let's go. Welcome to the United...
What happened was I visited a friend of ours there, and for a while, you know, we were chilling, we were having a good time, and of course everyone there was Muslim, so they brought up Donald Trump. Let me say, I'm not a fan of Trump at all. I'm not a supporter of Trump, but at the same time, I defend him from lies that are put out about him just like I would anybody. And the conversation was essentially everything we've heard before, you know, Trump's a racist, Trump's Islamophobic, Trump's xenophobic, and I couldn't sit there and just not join in, so I chime in and I'm like, I don't think Trump's a racist, and he may not be the second coming of Hitler. All hell breaks loose, dude. I had like 10 voices all screaming at me. We did have a few moments where we just, you know, talk like normal people, but god damn, I got called basically every word in a book. Racist, xenophobic, you name it. And in the end, the argument basically ended in us leaving early to not basically make everything worse than it already was. Later, my family had a little talk with me, telling me to basically just keep my mouth shut in this country. Sooner or later, it was gonna get me in trouble with somebody. I never thought of just how lucky I am to be a Canadian until I went to Pakistan. I was more miserable than I had ever been in my entire life. Like, I'd wake up sad, I'd sit and use a computer for literally the entire fucking day, and I'd go to sleep sad. That's all I wanted to do. And it's cool that my family tried to make me feel better, and I appreciate that, I really do. But nothing anybody could do could get rid of the borderline depression that I was feeling. And one of the biggest reasons I was just so goddamn miserable was because everywhere I went, that's all I saw. Misery is everywhere there. One time we were just driving, you know, people don't really follow traffic lights there, so it was just kind of a part of the road where all the cars had piled up, and I looked around and I saw so many people with no arms or missing eyes or children with birth defects, and they were just like crawling onto people's windows begging for money. And that's a common thing there too. Every day you go out, you'll see the most depressing and disturbing people forced to beg for money. Violence there were riots, people firing off guns. I lived in 3 different houses over the span of a month, and the first one I was in, there was a time where we had no running water, no heat, no AC, no electricity. There were like little termites crawling everywhere, and I remember just sitting there on the second day of the month I was there and thinking to myself, how am I gonna survive for a month? Not to mention, Pakistan is Islamized to the fullest extent. I mean, it's an Islamic state, what'd you expect, right? But I wake up every few hours just to hear the adhan going off, signaling everyone to go off to the mosque and start praying. And anything, one word against Islam, is basically murder there. So my speech was so suppressed, I felt chained up every second of the second because, you know, I usually let my opinions be heard, but I couldn't do that there with how many regulations there were. Anti-Islam websites, even websites that weren't necessarily anti-Islam but had a dialogue about it, were blocked and censored. Everywhere you go, you'd see messages about Islam. I remember my cousin making like a joke about atheism. Dude, the reaction from people was just crazy. And of course, no Islamic State video would be done without the violence. One time, I went out with my uncle, and we were walking to a barber shop close by to get a haircut, just him and I. And on my way there, we saw a transgender girl. In Pakistan, trans women are called hijras, and they're considered a third gender. And most of them are either prostitutes or just poor. So she was asking somebody for money. Out of nowhere, a guy runs up and just punches her in the face, and the cops were called, the guy was taken away. My uncle told me not to tell my entire family about it when I got home because cops were already called, it was a legal issue, the guy was taken away. I shouldn't make it into a bigger deal than it had to be, but LGBT rights are just not a thing there. And I still just can't stress how weird it was living in a basic theocracy where civil rights were violated every single day. Of course, Pakistan being the way it is, there's a ton of political instability and corruption in government. There was this marketplace called the Zainab market we were planning on going to. The day we were about to go, we turned on the news right before we left, and riots, explosions, all of it was happening. We could have been caught in all that in a second, and you know, I might not even have been here to tell the story. One time, our rickshaw we were in, which is basically what they call a cab there, randomly stopped. The driver turned around and just yelled at us to get out as quick as we could. We all left, and just our fucking luck, the engine was on fire. The poor driver, dude, this was his only job keeping him out of poverty, so he reached into the engine to pull out the gas tank. People came running in to help, brought a fire extinguisher, the driver got his hand burned like really bad, and I was just standing there with everybody else thinking, I could die right now. This thing could explode at any second, and I'm pretty damn close to it. I could honestly die every day I'm here. It was weird because I almost felt like desensitized to poverty and misery and greed and sadness, and I missed Canada so much that the real possibility of that cab just exploding right then and there just crossed my mind like a regular thought. There's a lot of stuff that happened on my trip to Pakistan, but it can be summed up as basically me having the worst time of my life. The poverty, the litter everywhere, blatant disregard for law, the terrorism, the violence, and so much more. It wasn't all bad. There was some good food. My family was really great. I want to put that out there. Props to my family, basically. They did everything with what they had to make sure that I had the best possible time. But a lot of things were just out of their control. And I gotta say, one great thing that came out of the trip was that I went through like a moment of truth there. And I realized what I'm doing now is more important than anything. Let me tell you why. Right now, in Canada, we're seeing something dangerous. We're seeing terrible politicians becoming bedfellows with Sharia. We've got a real Islamophobia law on the shelf right now. Our Prime Minister is somebody who cares more about keeping his millennial base happy than he does about making our lives better. People call me Islamophobic all the time. My friend, I've seen what Sharia does to a country. I've seen what kind of system it is. If the government of this country doesn't want to stand up to this kind of threat, it's up to the people of the country to do anything they can, whatever it may be. I love Canada so much. For real, the love I have for the West in Canada is unmeasurable. This is the nation that took me in when the country I was born in wouldn't. The nation that made me who I am today. And in Pakistan, I took a look around and I thought, is this what my nation could become one day? Could Canada see such a terrible turn? I have 100,000 plus people who are following me now. Massive number that I never would have expected ever. And it sounds a little gay, I know. But as long as somebody lives who opposes Islam, who opposes Sharia, we aren't gonna lose. So when people ask me why I criticize Islam, when people tell me I apparently hate myself for having so much disdain for the country I was born in, it's because I've seen what Pakistan has become, what it's come to. Unlike the virtue signalers who try to diss me, I've lived in a Sharia nation, in an Islamic state. And I'm so much more grateful to be a Canadian, to be a part of the greatest nation in the world. And the last thing I'd ever want to see is my nation and our civilization fall. So now that my gay little speech is all over, I just want to say thank you so much for 100,000 people. It's an incredible milestone, and you know we're just about to keep building, keep moving from here on out. So be sure to follow me on social media, Instagram and Twitter, links below. Also be sure to check out my apparel. We got a brand new Pepe shirt up there. It's pretty swell, you know. Also be sure to subscribe to my second YouTube channel, link below, in case something goes wrong with this one. And to 100,000 people. Hope your day has been going great, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a blessed day, everyone.
If my yesterday's a disgrace, tell me that you still recall my name. Oh, here in the shadows, you are here, and I need someone by my side.
Talking hands, talking feet, ears that talk too. Talking flesh and eyes bear witness against you. Dissected birds fly home to Abraham. It's all written here in the noble Quran. The earth existed before there were stars. The moon emits light and was split into parts. Elephants turned into chewed grass by stones dropped from birds. These are a few of Quran's perfect words. Millennia-old men at the time of the flood, your body was fashioned from one clot of blood. No evolution, but men turned to apes. In the Quran you will find no mistakes. When you tell me Allah will burn me, and it makes me sad, I simply remember these ludicrous things, and then I don't feel so bad. Viruses made just for our delectation. From smoke the earth volunteered its own formation. Worms in communities, milk from cows' bellies. Quranic facts with which science agrees. The Quran, it is perfect, Allah never fibs. Semen comes from between backbone and ribs. The night is a veil casting darkness beneath, and the dead can be raised up with slices of beef. Simple instructions to follow until each relative knows who will get what in a will. The moon follows the sun, which then sets in the mud. The earth is spread flat and stars fall as they should. When you tell me Allah will burn me, and it makes me sad, I simply remember these ludicrous things, and then I don't feel so bad. When you tell me Allah will burn me, and it makes me sad, I simply remember such ludicrous things as the Quran is easy to understand.